You're busy, and you want to cut through the noise. This is the deep dive, your shortcut to understanding what really matters.
That's right.
We've just dissected a White House press briefing, a really packed session, covered everything from major global events to key domestic policy shifts.
Yeah,
Consider this your intel brief.
exactly. Today, we're diving into the briefing Caroline Leavitt gave. That was April 22nd, 2025. It's quite a revealing look at the administration's current focus, how they're tackling a whole range of pressing issues.
Right.
Our goal here is really just to pull out the most significant takeaways for you.
Okay, let's start with the international landscape then. It seemed like some notable developments there. The briefing kicked off with news about Pope Francis passing away.
Yes, sadly. The White House extended its condolences. President Trump ordered flags to half-staff.
Okay.
And he's actually traveling to Rome for the funeral. It was a quick trip, leaving Friday morning, back Saturday evening.
Wow, quick turnaround.
It is. It kind of underscores the Pope's global stature, right? And the U.S. acknowledging this, significant event, you might think about how the passing of someone like that could, shift global dynamics a bit.
Definitely something to watch. Then they confirmed the president's upcoming Middle East trip.
They did. Dates are set May 13th to the 16th. He'll be visiting Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates.
Okay.
So that gives you a look ahead at, ongoing diplomatic efforts in a pretty vital region.
And sticking with diplomacy, the Norwegian Prime Minister is visiting soon.
This Thursday, yeah. A working visit. They'll be talking trade, regional security, the usual things. What's interesting, though, is this will be the 13th head of state visit this term already.
13? That seems like a lot.
It really points to a very active pace of high-level international engagement.
Okay. Now, a huge ongoing concern globally, the Russia-Ukraine war. What updates came out of the briefing on that?
Well, the main message was that negotiations are ongoing. There's a stated optimism for progress.
Optimism.
That's interesting. Yes, Special Envoy Steve Wood is apparently planning another trip to Russia. More talks with Vladimir Putin.
Right.
The U.S. line is still, wanting a peaceful resolution and end to the killing on both sides.
Yeah.
They did mention the president's frustration with how long it's dragging on.
We also heard from Secretary Rubio, didn't we, about how things might go.
We did. Secretary Rubio hinted that the U.S. might need to step back if the talks don't go well.
Step back. What does that mean exactly?
Well, they didn't really detail it, but it suggests, maybe a potential shift in strategy if things stall out. Depends on the outcome, I guess.
Okay. Other international news. Something concerning from India.
Yeah, tragically. The president got briefed on a terrorist attack in South Kashmir. It was at a popular tourist spot.
Oh.
Dozens killed and injured, apparently. The president's planning to call Prime Minister Modi, offer condolences, support.
Awful news.
It really is a stark reminder, isn't it, about the ongoing threat of terrorism and why international cooperation is just so crucial.
Absolutely. And finally, on the international front, U.S.-Israel relations came up.
They did. The press secretary strongly reaffirmed the president's support for Israel. The phrase used was no daylight between the two nations.
So, complete alignment.
That's the message. And discussions with Prime Minister Netanyahu have apparently included Iran, specifically the need to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. A long-standing issue, that one.
Right. Okay. Let's shift gears then. Let's turn to domestic issues. A big chunk of the briefing seemed focused on border security and immigration. And it sounds like the administration is pointing to some, major changes.
Oh, definitely. The press secretary brought up a Wall Street Journal piece talking about a Trump effect on the southwest border. Crossings reportedly grinding to a halt.
Really?
Yeah, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, they recorded the lowest number of southwest border encounters in history back in March.
In history. Wow.
That's a key data point they're really hammering home. Evidence, they say, that their policies are working.
And it wasn't just the southern border getting attention, was it?
That's right. The New York Post apparently reported a dramatic drop up north, too. In the northern border sector, they said they haven't encountered anyone since November.
Since November?
That's what was reported. And the CBP data for the Swanton sector, that's like a 300-mile stretch. Just 54 apprehensions in March.
54? How does that compare?
It's a 95% drop from March 2024, when it was over 1,000. And that specific sector, Swanton, used to account for like 80% or more of all northern border apprehensions in fiscal year 24.
So A huge shift there, too, if those numbers hold.
Exactly. A massive change being reported.
And the briefing specifically contrasted this with the previous administration's approach.
It did, citing a Washington Times report. They
Yeah.
focused on catch and release, releasing migrants into the U.S. pending their hearings.
Right.
The claim is that under Trump, that practice has dropped by 99.99% compared to the peak month under Biden, which was December 2023.
99.99%. That's basically eliminated.
According to their numbers, yes. They're presenting these figures as, clear proof of a major policy difference and its impact.
Okay. Beyond just the border encounters, what about deportations? Any updates there?
Yeah, they stressed an intensified effort to arrest and deport individuals they called criminal illegal alien invaders during the briefing.
Strong language.
It was. They gave examples of ICE arrests in cities like Chicago, Denver, Miami, Houston. People convicted of serious sexual offenses.
So focusing on criminals.
That's the emphasis. And they made a point of saying they're committed to this despite what they called Democrats' insane objections.
Oh, okay. And were there specific legal actions mentioned?
A couple things. The DOJ apparently dropped charges against an MS-13 leader in Virginia specifically to deport him faster.
Interesting.
But they also noted deportations in March were actually a bit lower than last year. And the Supreme Court has put a temporary pause on deporting members of the Tren de Aragua gang under the Alien Enemies Act.
Alien Enemies Act, what's that?
It's an older law. Allows deporting foreign nationals from countries we're hostile with. But the administration said they're confident that pause is temporary.
So deportations are still happening?
Yes, they emphasize deportations are continuing under Title VIII, which is the main body of immigration law.
Got it. And finally on immigration, did they talk about the total number of undocumented people in the U.S.?
They did give an estimate. They suspect there are millions, perhaps upwards of 20 million undocumented immigrants here now.
20 million. That's a huge number.
It is. They attributed that number to the previous administration's policies. The focus now, they said, is deporting as many as possible.
And they need more resources for that.
Yeah. Calls for more funding, more ICE agents, and they also mentioned wanting an end to what they called rogue district court judges blocking deportations.
Right. Okay. Let's shift focus again. The economy. The briefing highlighted this America First economic approach, right?
Yes, exactly. They pointed to two big announcements as proof it's working. First, Swiss Pharmaceuticals investing $50 billion over 5 years. That's supposed to create 12,000 jobs.
50 billion, wow.
And Regeneron made a deal with Fujifilm Technologies over $3 billion over a decade to make medicines here in the U.S.
So bringing manufacturing back.
That's the narrative. Specifically bringing pharmaceutical production back to the U.S.
Okay. Another big economic piece was about student loans. Sounds like a major change there.
A very big change. The administration announced the end of what they called Joe Biden's illegal student loan bailout attempts.
So the payment pause is definitely over.
The pause on sending defaulted loans to collections, which started way back in March 2020, ends May 5th. Involuntary collections like wage garnishment will resume for defaulted federal student loans.
That's going to affect a lot of people.
Potentially, yes. They highlighted the size of the debt, about $1.6 trillion in federal student loans. And they pointed out the low repayment rate, less than 40%.
Less than 40%.
Yeah. They framed it as unsustainable, unfair to taxpayers. The message was blunt. If you take out a loan, you have to pay it back. Fiscal responsibility.
Okay. Shifting to trade now. Sounds like a lot is happening behind the scenes.
A ton, apparently.
Yeah.
The press secretary reported a lot of progress. Said there are 18 proposals on paper from different countries right now.
18 proposals.
And the trade team met with, get this, 34 countries this week alone.
Busy week.
Very. And the vice president announced terms of reference for a trade deal with India. That was flagged as a big deal, especially given, the history of trade imbalances there.
Right.
The push is for speed-making deals at Trump speed, they called it, for American workers.
What about China? Any movement on a trade deal there?
The president was quoted saying they're doing very well on that front. Referenced those 18 proposals again, said something like over 100 countries want deals with the U.S.
So lots of interest, but no specifics on China talks.
Not really specifics about direct talks with Xi, but they indicated they're, quote, setting the stage for a potential deal.
Okay. The Federal Reserve also got a mention. Sounds like the president isn't too happy.
Not happy at all, it seems. Cleared displeasure with the Fed and Chairman Jay Powell. The administration believes their actions are Well, political, not based on sound economics.
And the issue is interest rates.
Yes, the president wants lower interest rates. They also mentioned Kevin Hassett, a former advisor, has apparently questioned the Fed's independence, too.
So pressure on the Fed to lower rates.
That's the takeaway.
And just quickly on the economy, the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, just lines saying the president wants the dollar to stay the world's reserve currency. Crucial for long-term stability and growth, they feel.
Right. Okay, moving on to some other domestic policy bits and pieces. HHS, Health and Human Services, might be banning something.
Yes, they teased an upcoming historic announcement about a potential ban on artificial food dyes.
Food dyes. Interesting.
Yeah, and they mentioned the Secretary trusts RFK Jr. to help improve national health. No specifics on the ban itself, though, just a heads up.
Okay. And something about reclassifying federal employees. Schedule F.
They're calling it policy career now. The stated goal is accountability, making sure federal workers can be held accountable for corruption and that they follow the administration's goals and, the public will.
So making it easier to remove certain employees.
Essentially, yes. Making it easier to remove what they termed rogue bureaucrats.
Got it. Harvard suing over federal funding. What's the administration's take?
Their stance is basically that Harvard brought this on itself by allegedly not obeying federal law, particularly around handling illegal harassment and violence against Jewish students or students of any faith.
So they're digging in.
Yep. They plan to respond in court. The line is, you want federal money, you follow federal law.
Okay. Parental rights in education also came up?
Yes, there's a Supreme Court case apparently dealing with gender ideology books in schools. The administration hopes the court sides with parental rights.
So emphasizing the parent's role.
Very much so. The president strongly believes parents need a bigger say in their kids' education. That was clear.
Right. There was an interesting question about travel warnings. Other countries warning citizens about coming to the U.S.
Yeah, that was raised. And apparently, Commerce Department stats show visitor numbers are down from some countries.
How did the press secretary respond?
She said she needed to see the full report, but basically pushed back, asserting the U.S. is still a great and safer place for business and tourism.
Okay. And speaking of the press briefing itself, new faces in the room.
Yes, Tim P. from Timcast IRL and the Culture War was there. It's part of this effort to expand access for new media outlets.
Bringing in different voices.
Exactly. The administration says they're committed to that. And the press secretary actually defended these outlets against some negative comments from other organizations, saying they welcome diverse, unbiased views.
Interesting dynamic. Okay, nearly there. Earth Day was yesterday, any mention?
Yep. Administrator M. Zeldin met his Mexican counterpart about clean water coming into the U.S., and he held a press conference in San Diego about the Tijuana River sewage crisis.
An ongoing problem down there.
Absolutely. They reiterated the president's commitment to clean air, clean water, environmental responsibility, promoting clean energy, highlighting the U.S. as a top producer of clean natural gas.
Okay. And one final sort of nice note.
Yes, a moment to recognize Melissa Young. She's a photojournalist with ABC News, retiring after 44 years covering the White House.
44 years. Incredible.
Yeah, she got a round of applause.
Uh,
A nice touch.
So, wow, as you can definitely hear, this briefing was absolutely packed, covered a huge range of critical issues, both here at home and around the world. You've certainly got a comprehensive overview now.
Yeah, you really have. And what's, I think, particularly striking is just the sheer breadth of it all and the potential impact of some of these policy shifts they talked about.
For sure.
You take the reported drop in border crossings, put that alongside the changes to student loan collections. I mean, these are things that could have really far-reaching consequences down the line.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, how all these different pieces connect. How might these reported changes at the border affect the economy? Or how will this approach to trade deals potentially reshape our alliances globally? Definitely something to mull over as you go about your day.